Om Om Ganganapataye Namaha, Om Gangurabhyo Namaha, Om Aim Saraswatyaya Namaha, Om Namo Bhagavate Shivanandaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vishnu Devanandaya, Om Ganana Antva Ganapatikam Havamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravashtamam Jyeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anashranvanuti Visida Sadhanam Om Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha. So I thought just to share with you for a few seconds this wonderful person here. So we're going to sing something together with just one short verse. There is a bright side somewhere. There is a bright side somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find there is a bright side somewhere. Very good. Now we're going to do Om Namo Narayana only for 2 minutes, and we're going to just play it as I said. Om Namo Narayanaya, 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 Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo So, Om Namah Shivaya. Good evening, everyone. I welcome you again to our little satsang on Tuesdays, which is only about 45 minutes long. And this evening talks are dedicated to the discussion of the power of thoughts and what we can do in order to lift our lives up, and in the light of this modern crisis, also to see what inner work we can do while the transformation is slowly taking place on the outside. So I will begin by discussing some of the nature of the thoughts that you come, beginning with Swami Shivananda's famous saying, which is, "You are the master of your destiny. You can do and undo all things. As you think, so you become. If you sow a thought, you reap an action. If you sow an action, you reap a tendency. If you sow a tendency, you reap a habit. If you sow a habit, you will reap a character. If you sow a character, you reap a destiny. Therefore, you are the master of your destiny." The question is when? The answer is now. We cannot wait for our destiny to be given to us in any given way. We cannot expect that the destiny is necessarily mediated only by forces outside of our control. But what we're doing, we have to learn to create our destiny today. Because whatever we do today will manifest as some fruit of action in the future. And therefore, the best time to act, the best time to create any changes is now. You know, you look at your life, we have all lived long enough. We have all done wonderful things in our life. We've made probably plenty of mistakes, each one of us together. And when we look at our life and we think what the most obstructing force in our life was, it was definitely the times when our mind was in a negative state. And that negative state of the mind may have continued for a long time without even our knowledge, without our awareness, and it could still be linked to certain people that may have hurt us, to certain people who we think they owe us something. So there could be a lot of unforgiving. It could be a lot of dependence on something outside of us. So the spiritual life teaches you that you are the person that has a capacity to create your life any way you like. Remember the two creators in this life, we being the co-creator. The first creator is the Lord himself, who has provided all the raw elements that were needed for our evolution, meaning that the Lord doesn't necessarily give us just our body and our mind, meaning that we have obviously earned it in some way, in the way that we have received them, but it's also that what we may call the cosmic intelligence of the Lord's is provided to us immense opportunities for evolution, for growth and everything. However, the very means of evolution which are found in the form of experiences are not necessarily always in alignment with what we like and also with an idea of how we think we should grow. And if we understand this, then we're really taking the reins of our life in our hands and we're ready to transform our lives. So I invite you to think of the a very difficult work that needs to be done by a spiritual aspirant, and that is to affect your transformation on a minute to minute or a moment to moment basis. If during the day you go back into some kind of a complaining mode, dependence mode, unforgiving mode, angry mode, if you're going in these directions, you're not taking responsibility for your life. You're still holding other people hostages in your mind. You're still holding other experiences in your mind. There's still people who consider this particular situation as taking place today in the world as something that is, unfortunately changed their plans or ruined their lives in some ways. This approach uh, of looking at life or cosmic intelligence as rewarding and punishing is wrong. If you want to look at the life as something that you're rewarded by, meaning that you earn something, then you should also think of it earning in good way and bad way. But it's best to just think about that, okay, maybe until today I had a difficult time. I couldn't change my mode, the mind. I couldn't lift the vibration of my mind. What can I do? So I believe in empowering our lives, but it is your work and nobody will do it for you. So we have to do it moment by moment, riding through all the ups and downs of a single day, because that work simply, it cannot be expected to be a smooth ride, because you're also swimming against the current, like what they call it, a salmon. So we need to learn to swim against the current and in a positive way. And this is the gist of the essence of this kind of talks, which can sometimes expand to be wonderful like resources of information and inspiration. And the speaker himself is never quite sure what may come the very same evening. So this is the beauty of a satsanga, Because in satsanga, even when the speaker speaks and the listeners listen, there's an interference, a positive interference of certain forces and certain sages. Their presence is felt, and all we have to do is to tune our minds to them. So you have to look at life beyond the facade, beyond the external form, and remember that the reason, even though we're born in an external world, all our work is really internal for most of the time. And we will see that whatever we affect on the inner level, we'll be able to transform this also externally in time. The reason being is as the thought as an energy is not it's effective immediately on its own level, but it's not immediately effective on a more dense level, which is the level of our physical reality. Therefore, when you're working with your thoughts, we're not just talking some fairy tales, oh, change your life, tomorrow you'll be in charge of it. We can only we can only take control of your life one small act at a time, one small emotion and feeling at a time, like that. We believe in small victories, and small victories are truly the way to a big victory. It's like a person who is a great tennis player or something like that. So every day that person goes and plays by himself, by herself. They play by themselves usually. Sometimes they play somebody else. They win smaller things here, smaller things there. They discipline their minds, which is also a victory. They discipline their emotions. So this is basically what spiritual life is. It's kind of a life of a martial artist, but in a spiritual field, it's kind of a peaceful path of a warrior, as I like to call it. So with this, we begin our little discussion on the nature of thoughts, and I would like to remind you that all this information is in the book that I've written. So it's called Empower Your Life, and in the section on the nature of thoughts. So looking at a thought, we think of it as a power. We think of it as an energy. We think of it as a means of communication. We think of a thought as a means of creating things, because all things in life are created by the means of thought. Therefore, we can look at the thought as rather something that has a life in itself, and in many ways is almost more effective than us, the way we work in life, since we're dispersed in so many directions. Whenever you have a thought, when it's directed in a certain towards certain end, it is bound to create some effect. Now I have to immediately say one important thing. Working with thoughts and wanting to know the nature and the power only has to be done in the atmosphere and uh, growth and conditioning in purity. Therefore, the purity is the most important factor in cultivating the right thoughts. As I said in a previous talk, I think sometimes we would love our thoughts to be really powerful, such as may this, situation with the coronavirus be removed immediately. May our people that we know to be ailing or sick or all be healed. So we want our power to have that presence or that potentiality of an immediate effect. Of course, in which case we would be like Jesus. But at the same time, the power thought we use quite carelessly for the rest of the day. One, we allow ourselves to be caught up in any negative state of mind, and we think that's okay. Other people caught up in a negative state of mind, so it's not a big deal. That is a dangerous attitude, and we will see this later on. So you have to look at the thoughts as the tools of execution. Therefore, they're not just there to come and go. If they stay, it's like having 4 elephants in a small room. It will be very problematic. You will not be able to put your furniture back together. This is how it is. And these thoughts can be as big as the elephants. And I love elephants, but here we're using them only in a certain sense. So this is the important thing. Do not have a careless approach to thoughts, meaning have a responsible approach to thoughts. And in this case, you will learn how everything that you've ever experienced is the result of your own thoughts. When you, one day, when you come to that realization, you will be like quite surprised. But as I said, never venture into knowing everything about the thoughts, especially the astral components and things like that, without having attained a sufficient level of purity. If there is a quality that is necessary, that is facilitated through yamas of Raja Yoga, Ahimsa and Satyam and all this, that's those instruments, those practices are there to support the building of the pure character, which is necessary for the proper execution of thoughts. In that time, you will be able to bless. And when your blessing comes, you'll be able to transform somebody's life. Of course, you even at this point, you're blessing and transforming many people's lives because you certainly have a certain, you know, standard of truth in you, certain purity in you. So we all have an effect on each other's lives. But what happens is you start to work with your thoughts. You start to understand their nature and how you can use them on a minute, like a time level, moment by moment. And then you anchor yourself in purity. Then you're going to find that you can do miracles with thoughts. But another thing that will happen is that people who utilize their thought power properly, they don't talk much. So you need to have a very good control over your speech in order for that thought to become a powerful tool, in executing the most wonderful things. So when you have positive thoughts, it's like you're sending thousands, billions, in fact, of small angel-like little beings. And each one of them has a particular life on their own. They can be nurtured to become greater, bigger angels, more positive, more effective. And when we have a little negative thoughts or big negative thoughts, then you're like, sending some draconian kind of, or whatever you call it, devilish thoughts, devilish powers that can ruin a lots of things in life, if not now, in the future. So this is what we need to do, is to have a balanced approach to thinking how we can employ the power of thought in the most effective way. So having discussed the thoughts in this kind of a way, we come to now some idea of what these thoughts have as qualities. One thing that the thoughts have is a very enormous velocity, right? They move at tremendous speed, faster than the light. For example, it takes 8 minutes for the light to come from the sun to the earth, but it takes less than a second to reach the object of a sun with your thought. So this is how fast the thoughts are. So every time we think of something, of an object or a person, that instant we contact them. Now, whether they're aware of it or not, it doesn't really matter. The important thing is that these forces are like that. So the thoughts are the subtlest forces in the universe, and they're still material in nature, which is important to know because the thought is a matter, but it is the most subtle matter that exists in nature. Being the matter, it has all the qualities of a matter. You can add to it, you can subtract to it, you can energize it, and there's so many things that it can be done. So that's the first thing. The second quality of thoughts that we find that is very interesting is the color of thoughts. Now, of course, this color can be um, inferred, for example, from the language that we use, and the language is created on the basis of that, on some experience. For example, we know that the thoughts of anger and irritability are often associated with red color like fire. The different, of course, shades of each color and tones, some softer, some stronger, some more dimmed, some more clear. So naturally, if you think in this way, the more dimmed color of some kind of a thoughts, which obviously only a clairvoyant person can see, uh, well-developed clairvoyant who can see the aura in a clear way. we will find something, first of all, to say about the aura. Aura acts as your skin. And it's just as your skin is supposed to protect you from different viruses, different things like this, so also aura is supposed to protect you from all kinds of negative entities and to allow certain positive things to come in. Because also in the skin, we have a pores that allow different things to come in. So knowing this, we have to think of aura as something rather dynamic in nature. So in aura, we will find certain parts of aura which are more steady color-wise and also structure-wise, whereas there are also parts of the aura that are more dynamically changing. In fact, there's certain qualities of aura that change moment by moment. So we don't need to worry about auras, and don't please want to be able to see auras. At that time, your life is going to become a hell, because you're going to be seeing things that are not nice to see, and you will rarely see what you think you would like to see. So from that point of view, again, I emphasize the purity is the first condition in accessing the thought world, because it is the safest way to venture yourself through all experiences, whether ordinary world or spiritual experiences, all the way to the end. In fact, you cannot get to a higher experiences without sufficient purity. And I emphasize this not to make anybody feel bad. I'm only emphasizing this because there's a lot of curiosity about, oh, what happened there and how is that? What kind of chakras are open? There's a lot of fairy tales spoken around the chakras. They may not be necessarily correct, and there's a lot of emphasis on chakras, chakra teaching that has nothing to do with this kind of a teaching, which has to be part of it. And one of the principles is the purity. I say this again and again because you can ram yourself against the great difficulties if your mind is impure and you try to act as some kind of a psychic medium and all that. Leave psychic mediums to themselves. That's the psychic mediumship is not spiritual life, just so you know. So there are lots of things that there are in the repertoire of spiritual experiences, and they will vary from person to person. And what one person may see in these worlds may not be at all what the other person sees. There may be some common characteristics, but nothing like two minds think the same. Okay? It's very rare to find, even in relationships, you know that. Needless to say, when we think of the mind as an instrument of cognition and creation and all that, well, we find that no two minds can think alike. So because of that, also the no two spiritual experiences of two people alike and things like that. So enjoy your growth, but enjoy it always with the great support of yamas, or great support of purity, a great support of just living one beautiful life based on virtue building and helping other people and living like that. So this is the important thing. So the aura acts as your protector, right? And what's in aura that acts as a protector is what we call a substance made up of ojas. And that ojas is, as you know, maybe from Ayurveda, it's a subtle immunity of your astral body. In this case, I'm not talking other components. So how is that built? You have some of your own due to your karma from your past lifetimes, due to some work that you did in this lifetime. Your aura has been built in a certain way. Now, the aura is supposed to also allow certain spiritual influences to come in, and for which reason I give you an interesting point here. The people who eat too many eggs, they make their aura stiffen and harden, just like the eggshell. And so on one side, they feel that they're not quite able to communicate with others anyway, but they're brilliant with the inner work uh, of the left brain, kind of calculations and mathematics and physics and everything, but they may not be able to connect to the feelings of others. But on the other hand, also it prevents you from receiving certain influences from masters and things like that. So even the food is essential here if you want to cultivate the right type of thoughts. For example, if we eat a lot of meat and meat products, then what we're going to do, we'll be attracting the astral forces of these animals. So they, not just that they become part of your thinking on a very deep level, not on a conscious level that you necessarily choose to think, but they become part of your aura in some ways. So what's necessary is that we have to make our choices right in every domain in our life. And always remember that the purity in itself, I mentioned again and again, is the foundation of a proper spiritual work. Everything else is a fantasy, everything else is risky, but the purity is the most wonderful thing. So the aura, as I said, is like a skin, allows certain influences to come in, certain also things are blocked. And within the aura, you have two types of elements. This is very simplified though. There may be people know much more than I do. One, which are more kind of already established belief systems and ways of thinking and feeling and processing. Those become like more permanent aspects or parts of your aura, and the rest of it is something that is changing, like thought by thought, reaction to reaction, different thoughts coming. So there's a lot of fluctuation in it. So when you look at the aura of a person, it will look like when you take a microscope and you look underneath to see how the cells operate or how the little bacteria move or anything like that. So a yogi who has a yogic vision like this is able to see this. However, yogi has not wanted to have a yogic vision so he can feel superior or she can feel superior to other beings. It is simply the result of certain ability to concentrate and achieve certain concentration. Even a lot of, and most mediums that you see, people who actually professionally work and charge you for certain spiritual psychic readings, are actually from the point of view of yoga fallen yogis, because they remained at that level and they achieved certain degree of concentration and whatever else they were doing in the previous lifetimes. So they're able to do things, but whether they can continue to grow, this is a question that we leave to them to answer. So that's an introduction into the color system of thoughts. So now, starting perhaps with the thoughts that with the colors that we are connected with. The color yellow is the very first color that comes to my mind, because the people who are in a teacher training course, they tend to wear yellow. And the reason being is, again, remember the two conditions. One is the shininess and the brightness of a color indicates a better quality of thought. And the second one is the shade, or how would I say, the quality of a color. For example, within the yellow, we have some which are more kind of opaque, and there's some which are very bright, and some like sun-like, and some like lemon-like. So all of that requires some meditation to know exactly the differences, but the basic idea is that the yellow represents one's intellectual development. It represents also other things. For example, it represents the spiritual qualities, for which reason at least in my tradition, the teacher training courses and advanced teacher training courses are like that. They always wear yellow t-shirts for several reasons. One is that to enables the intellect to grow. So the yellow color is worn by those people who are receiving the influence of the sun. The sun being yellow in color, we know that, but the sun is also related to the the masculine side of our body and the mind, which is the intellect itself. So I could probably spend an hour talking about each color, but I'll make it simple. When a person who has a psychic vision sees a person who has quite a bright yellow, like a column coming out of the top of the head, he or she knows, this is a scholar or a great value. So if that person is a scholar, that doesn't mean he is a genius, right? Because he may have some influences of greed and maybe jealousy like this. So he will have influences of other colors. So I'm not going to go into all these variations because that will take probably an hour or two just discussing a single thought, but we know that this is what it is. So by wearing yellow, you're intensifying the development of intellect, and you're also activating your spiritual samskaras from your previous lifetimes and this lifetime, so that it all becomes like a big force in you where your comprehension of the phenomena is also combined with your sadhana and everything. So you have just a greater experience of spirituality as such. You know, in India, brahmacharis, the little children especially, and the brahmacharis, the older, who have taken the vows of celibacy, they wear yellow. It is because when this energy is sublimated, at the time when they're studying and everything, this energy is used primarily to build a spiritual force, and especially to be able to gain the spiritual knowledge. Ultimately, the yellow color represents the color of the self, you can say. So therefore, it represents the self-knowledge itself. So this is how it is. So bright and clear color is what you want to have. So sometimes we have a little muddiness. Maybe in the past lifetimes we did some little things, so we're not intellectually quite smart in certain ways. But I don't like to use the word smartness because it kind of plays people against one another. So we want to think of it as rather something that we can brighten up in our life. You know, our true desire to know, our desire for self-knowledge, and even our brilliance and aura is increased by wearing the yellow. So many other things. So spiritual thoughts, meaning the thoughts of the highest reality, thinking of God like this, they have that yellow like a sunlight, a sun's rays quality of it, right? So this is how we're going to build a little bit of this kind of quality within us. Now, of course, you can go into any other color, just to give an idea. For example, the thoughts which red in color, or the red color, you can ask yourself what it represents. It depends how it looks like. Also, the color in itself has to be connected with the shape of that the thought takes. So every thought has a geometrical shape, and that shape is quite interesting because it's very easy to infer that the beautiful color shapes, like you see sometimes in mandalas and yantras and so on, are actually a perfected thought power, literally presented. So the beautiful thoughts, for those of you who know the Emoto's videos and the water kind of experiments, you know that they take beautiful shapes, but they can also look quite, you know, quite nature-wise. For example, how does a forest fire looks like? You know, how does it look like? It looks like it has like a razor, like a red flames that cuts through the forest. So similarly like this, when somebody is very angry, he can have this kind of a, like a flaring up of his aura, like we can tell that. And that's not going to be permanent, hopefully, so don't worry. But some people have a little more red in them, of that kind, red like a flame. Now, red and rose color, like a soft, that is love. So maybe anger could be just slowly, it can evolve into some kind of form of love with a little practice. Then, of course, there's a red which has a little dark in it, like a black. That is lust. Because you know, if you go to the pubs, which are now closed in New York City, where you have a combination of red and black, those are the most sexual colors that are combined together. In fact, many say that the color of devil is like this, black and red or whatever. So, meaning just that the power of Maya is very intense in these two colors when they come together. So that obviously the presence of a color can activate your chakras, meaning activate your thinking and feeling in a certain way. So like this, we can think of every color. Yellow, we finished with this. There's so many other aspects. The red color also represents life, represents, you know, all kinds of wonderful things. It can represent, for example, um, stimulation and energizing quality. It can have a stimulating and energizing quality. If it's very clear, it can represent a lot of prana, vigor in the body. Somebody who has a lot of power in their body. Then a nice red, soft color represents friendship and love, you know. And then a lot of people, especially Pitta people, have a red in their aura. It is because they love exercises, so they cannot live without exercises. The physical activities for them, everything. So it changes like that. Then, the green color and all this. So when you learn these colors, I'm not going to go today over the certain length of this, but when you understand these colors, then you can also think, okay, what does Christmas tree represent in terms of the color green and red? So you can come to your own conclusions. I don't want to tell you. The blue color is important. It represents the bhakti, devotions, high upliftment there, truthfulness. Then you have this lilacs moving into what you call it, forgotten the name of the color. Um, what is the color? Not lilac, but it's a purple color, like a different, I remember the band Deep Purple, so it came immediately here. So that purple color, very clear, very spiritual. People work with psychic things that usually have this kind of colors and in their auras. And then of course we have the boring, and then we have negative colors, the red, the any one of the colors that is murky is opposite, it's mixed with something. And then we have the brown and the black, and we don't need to, or gray, gray, we already know people feel depressed when they have a gray color. Now, do thoughts have weight? Of course they have. Sometimes you say, I feel so weighed down by my thoughts, meaning negative thoughts, right? So the depression feels that way. Some days you cannot lift a big toe out of your bed because you feel so heavy. Now, that doesn't mean that you added extra weight from your chocolate from a previous night. That just means that the psychic body has become feeling weighty, right? Heavy. So sometimes you feel like light, even if you haven't lost any weight, you feel like you can fly through the sky. You say, oh my God, I feel so light, I can jump, I'm so joyful, I can do this thing. So generally, spiritual people remain on the light kind of a side for most of the time. And this is what you can recognize simply by inference, Then shape and form, we already discussed this. But let's say if somebody wants something from you, and I'm not saying as a potential partner, that's also possible, but they want something and they're kind of creeping on you, you have the feeling. So that's exactly what happens. They're like their arms, their aura looks like a little arms or hooks kind of trying to come around you. So you will feel all these things. I won't tell you when, and it's better not to even think of these things. So just to give an idea how real these guys can be. Okay, then size of the thought. Yeah, there are thoughts, for example, my Sanskrit thought, I have some friends here in this beautiful little gathering who are Sanskritists, and they know that my Sanskrit thoughts have grown too big, meaning that they're overwhelming my life and time and everything. So I have to try to trim them. So to trim the size of the thoughts, even of the ones that they're actually okay, but they imbalance you, you have to create a certain balance in your life. See, whenever you overdo things in one area, what happens is you create imbalance in other areas. So it is quite important that in life you continuously strive towards one word that will bring everything in a proper relationship with everything else, and that is the word harmony. Harmony and balance. These two things are important. So when you have an idea, it's a small thought, right? But when you dwell on that idea, it keeps growing. How does it grow? It starts to borrow the elements from the astral world, and the thought starts to become heavier. And as it starts to become heavier, it starts to become more conducive to a physical manifestation. When a thought reaches a certain weight, is definitively something will take place in the external life of yours. But what we want pure positive thoughts, right? And we want them to be large. That's the idea. So the thought is like a little cloud, you can send it off, and you can add to it, you can cultivate it on the side. This is what you do through sadhana. Every day you repeat some mantra, every day you do some pranayama, every day you do whatever you do. Each day you add to that thought power a certain, yeah, like you're feeding it, literally. You're adding it some nourishment, vitamin, B1, B2, B6, like this. So let's say I decide to not read any news for 1 week, but only spiritual books. This would be a wonderful relief from this coronavirus for most of us. So let's say for 1 week, I just dwell on these positive thoughts, Upanishads or Bhagavad Gita or whatever book you like. It doesn't matter, spiritual book. My book, okay, not bad. So like this, you can read anything you like. So when I say my book, it's really Swami Shivananda's book. I only kind of commented on what I learned. So there may be some little experience here and there, but nothing too big. So like this, one thought small, you add some nourishment to it, you mix it with little love, and it starts to grow. It starts to become gradually your reality. See, when the thought reaches a certain maturity level, its growth, then it transforms itself into an action. So you wonder where these actions coming from. So I told you probably one time, one lady in London when I was running the center there, she was in my course called Positive Thinking. What else was I teaching anyway? Uh, and she said, oh, I wanted to do this course, and all of a sudden I saw you open the center. I said, well, wait a second, we did not just open the center. The center had been here for 9 years. And she said, no, I pass by the center every single day on my way to work, and I tell you, you were never here. I said, okay, well, that's what you think. And said, until, today, I noticed you opened the center. So I tried to explain to her, this is not such a thing. If we have lived for 9 years and you did not notice us, it's because your thought world was not aligned with the activities that were running in that center. So when that lady over the time was thinking, I need to change my life, I need to think positively, whatever she was thinking like that, and those thoughts reached a certain maturity level, all of a sudden the center manifested in front of her. This is how things happen in our life. You see, when I lived in London, I'll be honest, for 13 years, I did not know where, a butcher shop was. Why? Because my vibration was in there. If you ask me if there was one, probably I never noticed one, even if maybe around the corner. So this is how life works. If you align your mind to a particular vibratory level, you dwell on certain ideas, you're going to be meeting the reflections of these thoughts that you have in your mind. And sometimes, of course, from some past, there may come some little, boomerang kind of a situation to remind you that yes, you used to think also some other thoughts. That's also okay. But remember, you can grow your thoughts like you have your, you know, garden behind your house, and you can also grow thought forms together like we're doing it today. Isn't it amazing? We are all thinking along, changing our lives, in a positive direction. It's not like here a saint is talking to, unless the saint is talking, then he's talking to other saints. But what we're doing, we're all working on trying to improve our lives. So what happens is that as we think in the same way, as we pray in the same way, we attract a tremendous amount of fluffy, like a light snow entities that come and they attach to your aura in the places which are pure and strong, and they then charge you with certain electricity like this, and then you feel, oh my God, I'm so inspired. I want to do my sadhana today. I want to do this, and I want to help this person, like that. So this is how it works. So when the prayers are conducted in churches and temples and the big aratis and things like this, a tremendous thought power is generated that can purify the whole energy. You know, many people now worried, oh, what do I do now in these times? Like, you know, well, you pray together with people, you know, via Zoom or by yourself, it doesn't matter, or you can send most positive thoughts like this. So this is called in spiritual teachings called egregor. Egregor means a psychic entity that is created by a group of people and it's nurtured every single day. So all ashrams have their own egregor, all spiritual organizations like that. So this is a little bit about this. Thoughts have their directions. They also have their lifespan. The lifespan of thoughts is very interesting. And this is the something to know. Some thoughts are alive and active even today after having been taught for thousands of years. You know, oh, sorry, thousands of years ago, we have some thoughts that come from times of Atlantis, they come from a time of Egypt. There, some of them are extremely negative, some of them are extremely positive, and these thoughts, they wreak either havoc or they create wonderful blessings in the world. So even that, like this. Then you have, of course, thoughts of great masters like Buddha or Jesus. They're still alive, you know, and they're still acting on the substance of everybody's mind. So we should remember that the thoughts that you don't cultivate, the sadhana that you did, you're not doing it anymore, eventually will lose its weight. Yeah, it will become very thin and eventually will die. So that's the first principle. Now, when we come to these modern times, I will talk definitely some more things and thoughts. Let us remember important thing for these modern times. Coronavirus time is a great teacher. It's not like what people tend to think about. One, you must work with your fear, meaning put it aside. Uh, Fear is a great psychic force, a great psychic impurity. And so one which is considered to be one of the greatest anti-divine forces. And so we know that as yogis, we have to make sure that we do not feed that kind of a thought. Remember, thoughts are the tools of execution, so therefore we don't want to have anything to do with that. How should we look for solution in the modern world? We should look for solution in the modern world in the same ways we do in our own lives. Instead of letting yourself get agitated by the prospect of not having money, by the prospect of not knowing when this is going to end, which is what everybody does, you know, what we need to do is, instead of continuously thinking about the problem, that's not the way to solve any problem. You can think of the problem constructively for a little while, leave it aside, allow for the deeper dimension of your mind to work on it, connecting with the other things. And then what we do, instead of turning all these ideas in our minds again and again and again, and actively seeking solutions to the point of exhaustion or worrying and fretting and running here and there inside of our minds, do just one thing: try to remain quiet. Attune your mind to a higher vibration through a mantra, through a prayer, through breathing like this. And then, of course, according to your ability, your nature and everything, try to invoke the light to come and then wait for it to come. Somebody said very beautifully, don't you, have you noticed how children, when, you know, when they're left to themselves, and if they even have problems, sometimes diseases, you know, quite serious, they don't really think they're not going to get well. You know, usually they don't know how to wait. And to know how to wait is to put, as somebody says, is to put time on one side. So this is, something that I would like to close this little satsang with, these ideas. And I hope you are able to kind of understand what direction this these Tuesday satsangs are going to get. Since this was only the first 3 talks or whatever, they were just an introduction. Now I'm really getting to know you, and I'm going to be so inspired to share these teachings with you as much as I can. And we'll be definitely going outside of the books, which I'm a master of. Sometimes I have to master coming back to the actual subject, but I think we will definitely have a wonderful time to in the future. Please also feel free to write any questions you may have. Not too long, please, because I have no time to read anything. Short questions if you have, or any suggestion you would like to hear during these Tuesday talks, because we are continuing this throughout the summer, all the way until we feel comfortable. We don't need this kind of satsangs anymore. Or if you get tired of me, that's also okay. So just to kind of have some inspiration for all of us. So I will finish here with 3 ohms. Om Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. बहुत सदगुरु शिवान महाराज की जय, बहुत शिव देवान महाराज की जय। हरि ओम तत्सत।